Welcome to tonight's Terror, where you can expect original scary stories. Nothing here is written or narrated by AI. If you enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel and sharing your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for visiting, and enjoy the story. A few months into the COVID-19 pandemic, my friend group had had enough isolation and social distancing. We decided we'd form a pod and head out for a long weekend of camping. We figured if we all tested negative before heading out, camping together could be a safe way to get out of our homes and spend some time with friends. We were lucky enough to get our hands on 4 test kits, and luckier yet that we had all tested negative. The state forest we decided on was about 2 hours from town. We thought it would be remote enough to feel disconnected, but still within reach of civilization in case someone got sick. We wanted something to liven up the dark days we'd been eking out, stuck in our apartments. We hoped this would be the fun and bit of adventure we were looking for. We found adventure, but far more than we wanted. The trip started off well enough. Rolling into the state forest, we wondered if there would be a gate stealing us out or a ranger in a booth waiting to turn us back, and we encountered neither. Driving slowly into the park through loop after loop of empty campsites, we decided on one that had a nice backdrop and wasn't too far from a working water spigot. It was also the most dramatic of clearings in terms of its setting. The backside of the site looked out over a ravine. The valley below was stunning, and the sunlight was playing off the granite rock faces on the opposite side. We set up camp in the clearing, surrounded by the towering pines. It was odd to pitch our tents in one site among hundreds of empty lots. The air was crisp, the sky was clear, and the scent of earth and pine needles packed every breath. It felt so liberating to be outdoors and absolved of the masks and hand sanitizer. We set out with our water bottles and bug spray to try to cover some ground, and at least find the trailheads for the hikes we wanted to do in the coming days before dark. After a few hours of exploration, we returned to the campsite as the light was fading. We had carried back enough wood for a long campfire. Before long, the fire crackled cheerily in the center of our circle of chairs as we sat laughing and reminiscing. Mike reminded us of his half-ironic fascination with Bigfoot and delivered a serio-comic breakdown of the possible Sasquatch migration routes through this very state park. I could scarcely articulate to my friends how fulfilling it felt to be with them and free of the looming threat of the pandemic, at least for a few days. Then, around the time it was fully dark, things started to feel wrong. It was subtle at first. An absence of bustle in the air, almost like the forest itself had fallen silent. The laughter died down, and we sat without speaking for a long moment, listening. Then, the faint sound of brush moving behind our cluster of tents. Scarcely detectable, but as I looked from face to face in our circle, it was clear. I hadn't imagined it. "Did you hear that?" Jen asked, her voice tight. I nodded. "Probably just an animal," I said, though I wasn't sure. The sounds were too steady, too purposeful. I scanned the darkening trees, feeling my pulse quicken. Mike grabbed a flashlight and stood up, shaking off the tension with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I'll check it out. Stay here." "Not alone, you won't," Lucas said, grabbing his own flashlight. "I'm coming." They shuffled towards the trees lining our campsite. Their lights bounced off the trunks, leaving Jen and me alone by the fire. The silence grew heavier as Mike and Lucas walked the perimeter, piercing the gloom with their flashlights, one triangle of space at a time. Finally, The light from their flashlights came bobbing back toward us. "We didn't see anything," Mike said as they returned, but his voice lacked his typical bravado. "It's probably nothing. Let's just stick close to the fire tonight." We tried to shake off the unease and passed around a bottle of whiskey. No matter, the tension clung to us like the smell of the smoke from the fire. After a while, we called it a night, heading back into our tents, but I couldn't sleep. I lay there, eyes wide open, listening for any and every creak of a branch, every rustle in the bushes. After interminable minutes, maybe hours, something moved outside. Then, a low growl, very near the tent. My breath caught in my throat as I sat up, staring at the spot on the tent wall the sound had come from, as though it would help me to hear. The growl came again, low and wet, but closer this time. It trailed off into a chittering rasp. I reached out and shook Jen awake. "There's something out there," I whispered, my heart racing. Before she could respond, we heard a scream, a sharp, panicked cry from the direction of Lucas's tent. We bolted out, grabbing the flashlight and racing through the campsite. Lucas was already outside, clutching his leg. Blood seeped through his hands. His sock and sneaker were already deep crimson and soaked. "Something bit me," he gasped, his face pale. At that moment, it struck me that he looked far more scared than in pain. The fabric of his orange tent now yawned raggedly at one corner, ripped crudely and flapping in the breeze. I swung the flashlight around, scanning the woods, and then I saw it. Just beyond the tree line, something moved, something maybe human. It was tall, though, and hunched. It was almost like a person, but so wrong. Above the shoulders, its head tilted slightly to the side, as if it was too heavy. The head was bulbous and too long at the bottom, like an overinflated football. The mouth gaped open and bared rows of blunt nubs, all grinding teeth. Its eyes shined a jaundiced yellow in the beam of the flashlight, reflecting back at me with a wild intensity. It moved in a way that sent shivers down my spine. Unnatural, jerky, like its lower half wasn't communicating with the upper half. But it had the general shape of a man. Was this a man once? "What the hell is that?" Mike whispered, frozen beside me. Jen pulled Lucas toward the fire, her hands shaking. "We have to stop the bleeding," she muttered, pressing a whole roll of paper towels against the crushed and bleeding portion of his leg. But my eyes were locked onto the thing in the trees. It didn't belong here. It didn't belong anywhere. Looking back at that moment, it occurs to me that it might have been thinking the same thing about us. And then it moved. Fast. Before I could react, the thing burst from the tree line, sprinting toward us with impossible speed. We scattered instinctively, barely dodging its path. It tore through the campsite, knocking over folding chairs and a stack of firewood without pause. Mike grabbed a branch from the fire, waving it wildly as the thing slowed and began to circle us. "Get back!" he shouted, his voice trembling. But the thing didn't stop. It lunged again, this time toward Lucas, who was still on the ground. I didn't think. I lurched gracelessly forward, grabbing another branch from the fire and thrusting it toward the creature. The flames flickered and snapped, and for a moment, the creature hesitated, its eyes narrowing as it regarded the fire. Then, with a barking protest, it retreated, disappearing back into the woods. We stood there, panting, hearts racing, waiting for it to come back. But the woods were silent again, eerily silent. Jen knelt beside Lucas, her face pale. "We need to get him to a hospital. Now!" Mike nodded, already packing up what he could. I grabbed my phone, but there was no signal. Of course there wasn't. We hoisted Lucas between us, moving as quickly as we could to the car. Every rustle, every shadow felt like the creature was watching, waiting for this moment. But it didn't appear. By the time we had what gear we could manage packed, Lucas was fading in and out of consciousness, his leg wrapped tightly in a mass of t-shirts bound by a leather belt. I sped through the maze of back roads and then really sped on the highway, not stopping until we reached the nearest hospital. As they wheeled Lucas into the emergency room, I finally let myself breathe. It was over. But the image of that thing, its yellow eyes, its slanted, unnatural body, it didn't leave me. We never spoke of it again. Not really. In fact, our friend group didn't speak to one another much at all after that. When people asked, I said Lucas had been attacked by a wild animal. A bear, maybe. Something explainable. Something real. But I know what I saw.